the gold card is now $1 million. So it's more expensive than EB-5. It's a donation. And it was announced on top of the changes to H-1B requirements.
They were going to take for the new gold card, that they're apparently going to try to take the visas from the EB-1A categories or maybe the EB-2 NIW.
Now, with this announcement, it actually made our lawmakers and our people in the government think more of EB-5 and at least Google it what it is, since the president himself mentioned it. So,
if you're an Indian, I'm challenged to see the benefit of the gold card. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest episode in the world of immigration here in the U.S. And today we're going to focus on EB-5, which is a really hot topic, especially in light of some of the recent announcements by the Trump administration. And today, as a special guest, we've got our old partner, colleague, Natalia Pronina from EB-5 Capital. She's a vice president there. Am I correct with your title, or maybe you're executive vice president, or maybe CEO at this time? Right? No? All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm the vice president of investor relations at EB-5 Capital. And we've been working with Charles and his firm for the past 15 years now.
Yeah, quite some time. Yeah.
Our regional center.
Even before you were doing EB-5. So
yeah,
that's quite
a long time.
Yeah, long time. So we invited Natasha to join us today to talk about kind of some of the latest trends in the EB-5 world. What's of relevance for a lot of our listeners and potential clients who are looking at EB-5 and what to keep in mind. And especially, and maybe we can start with this topic, Natalia, we could start with the gold card, because that's something everybody's been talking about. Trump again made this big announcement in September 2025 that followed up on their announcement back from the spring. And if for anybody who's been following this, they had this big hoopla with Elon Musk and everything in March. And, this is something we're going to roll out in 4 weeks. And I think everybody in these circles kind of was, shaking their heads like, what are they talking about? Stuff, especially in Washington in general, things don't happen that fast, especially in terms of immigration legislation and changes like that. And I think some of our suspicions were confirmed, right? That gold card version 1 didn't go anywhere and it just kind of withered on the vine, it seems like. And then September, they came out again with a new, let's call it gold card version 2.0, that had a little bit more meat on the bones, had some more information, had some more details about it, but still a number of questions about how this was going to operate and how it's actually going to be implemented in reality. So I'll ask you a question here in a second, Natasha, but maybe before I do that, let me just to make sure that so that we're on the same page, I'll just kind of describe to everybody what we know more or less about the gold card program as it was initially announced not too long ago. So what the idea is that applicants would donate $1 million to the U.S. government. So unlike EB-5, this isn't an investment in a project. Unlike EB-5, you have no expectation of getting your money back. And it's actually more expensive. EB-5 is, as we all know, it's $800,000. The gold card would be $1 million. So that right away to me raises a lot of questions as to what is the big difference, or what is the advantage of the gold card compared to EB-5? It costs more. There's no way of getting your money back. It's an unestablished program, unlike EB-5 that's been around, 20 plus years. And in its current format, it's legislatively fixed in the laws until, end of September 2027. That EB-5 is certainly a more reliable product. And we'll talk about that, Natasha, in a second. So I was kind of puzzled by, the gold card, and we thought, there could be an audience, a target audience for it. But if you look at some of the features, it's on shaky legal ground. It's $1 million. It's a donation, not an investment. Are there really any advantages? And is this really a product that competes with you guys, Natasha, with the regional center and your projects? Do you guys see much of a threat from the gold card to your EB-5 offerings?
Well, good question, because actually one might think that, the recent announcement and the previous one in February could somehow affect EB-5. If it has affected EB-5, then I would say only in a positive way, because first, a lot of potential investors who have been considering EB-5 for some time, but were postponing for various reasons, they realized that, actually something hypothetically may happen to the program. It can be changed or how they announced it in the first place. It sounded to many like the current administration is considering replacing EB-5 with a gold
Yes.
card, even though we've been, informing our investors and potential investors that we don't see any possibility of that happening because that would require changes to the law, which doesn't happen overnight. And even so, a lot of people consider that it's the right time to actually move forward because you don't want to wait until something may happen sometime down the road.
It was too late.
Yeah, we see the same effect this time because of the version, as you said, 2.0, that says that, the gold card is now $1 million. So it's more expensive than the EB-5. It's a donation. And it was announced on top of the changes to H-1B requirements, which prompted many of our potential investors who are already here in the United States, mostly, I would say, like the majority of like Indian nationals who are considering EB-5 are those who are here on F1 or H-1B, and the most recent announcement made EB-5 even more attractive compared to potentially dealing with not just the wait for your employment-based green card, but also for issues related to renewing your current H-1B.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a good, and it's a good segue that I think the gold card in the spring, Trump explicitly and in his cabinet heads were saying explicitly that we're getting rid of EB-5 and we're going to replace it with this great gold card. I think it was very noticeable, at least for me, that nowhere in this most recent version did they, criticize EB-5 or say it's a cesspool of corruption or all these other nonsensical, monikers they gave to the EB-5 program. So I thought it was very important for them to say, hey, there's EB-5, but hey, we've got this gold card now that has supposedly some other benefits, but we're not going to get rid of EB-5. So I think that was a key difference. And then I think also what you mentioned about the news about the H-1B surcharge or tax or whatever you want to call it for $100,000. That's what's, I think, is putting EB-5 at the top of mind for a lot of people who are in H-1B or considering it or were considering it, because for some of them, that option is not too viable right now. And so they're looking at other options. And you can, share with me, your experiences from the regional center perspective, but definitely over the past year, we've definitely seen an increase in H-1B visa holders, increase in interest in EB-5. And this was even before the announcement about the $100,000 change. And I presume you guys have been seeing that as well, right?
Yeah,
Over the past year or so.
Because EB-5 has been attractive, has been looking attractive for many individuals who would otherwise consider other employment-based categories. But with EB-5 and the visa availability compared to like other categories, ability to file immediately for the adjustment of status, assuming your country is so current, that made EB-5 a solution for many families who are already here in the United States. Additionally, since you asked about like the sort of like the effect all these announcements made on us regional centers, I would also notice that how, our leadership noticed that even if, before any efforts done on the Hill, any work done with the government on EB-5 related matters, you would see very little awareness often about what this program even is. Now, with this announcement, it actually made our lawmakers and our people in the government think more of EB-5 and at least Google it what it is, since the president himself mentioned it. So after all, it had a positive effect in the government realizing that, oh, hey, the current administration is very much interested in investment-based immigration, since they raised the topic themselves. So EB-5 became, as you said, like a hot topic in discussion. So,
well, in addition to the heightened attention that policymakers and other decision makers are getting about the EB-5 policy, it's also becoming of heightened interest among Indian investors who I think in the past weren't even considering EB-5. They're here in H-1B. They thought that would serve them well, or they already have an approved I-140, say through their employer. And the wait time is just so unbearable for them that they just can't even, we're talking years and years and maybe even decades. So I think for Indian investors in particular, EB-5 has become the fast ticket and the most reasonable option for them to get a green card in the foreseeable future because just about every other category, whether it's EB-1A, EB-1C, certainly EB-3, EB-2, I mean, the wait time is just, it's not even bearable. So I think that in large part is driving a lot of interest as well. And I'm sure you guys, as you mentioned, you guys are experiencing that and probably have for quite some time.
Yeah. And also, like on that note, if you think of like potentially this new category allowing for even faster processing, let's say, but how do we solve the issue of like visas and visa wait unless
you're talking about the gold card? About the gold card?
Yeah, like about the gold card.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Even if they, whenever we see that specific mechanism and the processes they promise to share soon,
right.
Even if somehow it says that the processing times are imminent and it's going to be faster than the traditional EB-5, then you may make, comparisons, say, yeah, it's slightly more expensive. Yes, it's a donation, but it's a faster way to the status. But as it sounds today, the immigrant sort of like the visa count and visa eligibility has not been addressed because the proclamation says that visa applicants have to follow the same requirements for these EB-1, EB-2, even EB-5 that mentions categories.
Right. Yeah. I think it's problematic. Yeah. So for people who didn't know, we didn't maybe mention this earlier, that they were going to take for the new gold card, that they're apparently going to try to take the visas from the EB-1A categories or maybe the EB-2 NIW, right? And from my understanding and speaking with other attorneys, that's very problematic too, because at least for Indians, there's even a bigger backlog in those categories, right? For EB-1A and NIW, there's even a bigger backlog than say for EB-5. So if you're an Indian, I'm challenged to see the benefit of the gold card. I mean, there's still some details that have to be filled in. We're going to have to sit tight and wait to see where that all comes through. But at this point in time, I don't see the advantages of the gold card for, say, nationals from India. And in addition to that, this whole gold card premise is on very thin legal ground, right? This is an executive order or an executive action. This is just a proclamation by the president. It doesn't have the backing of Congress. It's not a law per se like EB-5. I mean, EB-5 is enshrined in the statutes. It's been around for decades. Yes, it's changed over the years and there's been changes, et cetera. But it's a foundation. It's been there for a long time and it's not so easy to change it or to get rid of it. Whereas an executive order by the president, a court could quite easily find it as being unconstitutional or illegal or something, and that would throw it out right away. So that makes the gold card also a little bit riskier because it's just on less stable legal grounds than the EB-5 program. So another reason why I think EB-5 is definitely more competitive and more advantageous to people than this gold card, despite all the marketing efforts.
That's what we definitely see a demand growing, especially from those investors who are here in the United States, as well as investors in general who might be concerned about, what happens with the EB-5. As I said, regardless of all the attempts to tell them that we don't anticipate anything happening to the EB-5 program in the near future, especially since we have 2 more years before the authorization and
So we definitely have time. We definitely have time before the reauthorization. So again, if you're looking, and as far as the reauthorization goes, just to make clear to people, right? So it's the law, the program in its current form is in effect until, September 30th, 2027. But if you want to get grandfathered in and protect yourself against any potential changes that could happen while your case is getting reviewed down the road, et cetera, you've got to file by September 30th, 2026. So the program, I don't think the program's going to end, but as it's in the statutes, it's until September of 2027. But to protect yourself against any changes, get full protection, you've got to file by September of next year. Now, related to this, I wanted to get your feedback, Natasha, in regards to a phenomenon we've been seeing lately with a number of other regional centers, is where the regional centers are offering financing to the investors in cases where the investors can't get the full 800,000, together. And this is especially, I think, of interest, at least from our experience over the last year, for Indian investors or other investors that are in the H-1B. These are people who never really in the past contemplated investing in the EB-5. It was 800,000. They didn't necessarily have that money. Maybe they had 400, maybe 500, but they never thought they'd have the need to save up $800K. And now with these changes with the H-1B, this possible $100,000 surcharge, a lot of them are looking at, hey, I want to do EB-5. But especially with a lot of our inquiries we get from Indian nationals, for them, it's very important to get financing because they just literally don't have that full $800,000. They could maybe get a HELOC. They could maybe try, an unsecured loan from a lender in the U.S. or a loan from a friend or someone else. But a lot of them are coming to us and immediately saying, hey, I'm interested in EB-5, but I need to do a project that provides financing by the regional center itself. And as we know, there's not a whole lot of regional centers that do that. And you can tell us the policy for EB-5 Capital and how you guys work with clients in that regard. But for people that might not know, recently there's been a number of regional centers that have some serious problems with their loan program, how it was set up. USCIS is rejecting it, how it was set up. And so that shows that, this is a little bit more complicated than just finding a regional center that provides loans and off you go, that there's, compliance issues you've got to worry about. So what's EB-5 Capital's approach on that whole issue?
Well, to begin with, regional centers should not be advising on the source of funds, right? So we never, and our leadership never saw the right approach in like telling investors, hey, there's a product, look at it, right? We're not trying to sell the idea of like using a loan or any other source of funds matter, right? We always redirect potential investors to consult with immigration lawyers. However, the idea of using the loan from a bank or a person or a company or a regional center has been around for a few years now. We looked at this potentially attractive product to offer. We haven't proceeded for a number of reasons. First of all, our lawyers didn't feel like we have enough evidence in the industry collectively that these source of funds has a high rate of approval. Mm-hmm. And if so, then what would be the parameters that would make such petition approvable? What kind of requirements would a regional center need to comply with? Because even if you are sourcing a portion of your source of funds as a loan, there has to be evidence, right? And regional centers are not banks, where you may argue that a bank does not need to prove that they are operating with like a legitimately received money. So for the regional center, it would still be a question of providing a package of documents to justify the source of the funds that we are giving as a loan. So that was number one, not enough practice, not enough case law, not enough feedback from the immigration services. Secondly, I know now more investors look into this option, so maybe we will reconsider it again. Let's see what happens. But for now, we offer two options to those investors who cannot start the process with the full investment. We do offer, depending on the project, ability to file your petition with a partial investment. Usually the minimum is around 200 to invest to be able to file your petition. Again, it has to be agreed upon with your immigration lawyer because there are certain things that have to be included in your application if you are in filing with a partial investment. And usually we're able to provide up to 6-8 months of time to complete the investment. It works well for many investors who are facing issues with funds transfer, especially, let's say, if we talk about Indian nationals, they often receive some money as a gift from their relatives, and there are restrictions or might be restrictions on the transfer amount or transfer timing. So when time is of essence and the investor wants to start the process ASAP and be able to file concurrently, file EB-5 together with the adjustment of status. So for them, the option of still starting the process today and then getting the rest of the funds a little later also works. And again, especially considering the fact that no matter who provides a loan, usually it's associated with some sort of interest to be paid to the provider. So again, some investors don't see it as a negative. Some investors are trying to explore ways where they don't need to pay any extra for the option to file earlier than the funds become available. So again, case by case, the option of like starting with a partial works for many investors who we work with. Additionally, we do provide an option to use the self-directed IRA funds. And again, this is what we see Indian investors are asking about. We often had calls with potential investors who first asked, do you guys offer self-directed IRA program?
Right.
Will I be able to use my IRA funds? So I sense that for many, that's also something of interest, or probably getting a trend now, especially for investors who have been working in the United States for a number of years and have funds there. Again, we cannot advise on whether it's an approvable source of funds. It all has to do with what your immigration lawyer is telling you. But yes, we do offer the program to use the self-directed IRA.
Yeah, that's very unique. I haven't heard about that product you're offering on the market, and I think that's probably relevant for a lot of people that have been in H-1B for quite some time, and they have retirement funds, or they've created some IRAs because they've been living here in the U.S. for a while. So that's very interesting. I think that would definitely be of interest to a lot of people using self-directed IRA funds. Do you see any, I mean, we're looking at the crystal ball here a little bit, but looking forward, are you guys quite optimistic as we get closer? We're still quite a ways away, probably almost 2 years before the law as it's currently written would expire. Are you guys relatively optimistic that there will be a renewal, when it comes time for that, or it's too early to make any estimates?
We are. In general, we don't see, we don't see a real threat to the program not being reauthorized in 2027. Of course, I don't think anyone can sign off on that, meaning no one will probably tell you 100%. But
right.
As I said, as of today, and based on what our leadership hears when they communicate with the government officials, we don't see any reasons to believe that the program will not be reauthorized. Again, situation changes quickly nowadays in the sense that what may or may not happen even with the gold card. So let's see how the situation unfolds. But for those investors who are afraid to start the process today because they think something may happen to the program in 2026, I'm not sure it's reasonable to think that way, because if you have already decided with the immigration lawyer and within your family that EB-5 works for you and allows to apply for the benefit you would like to receive, then waiting longer probably will only take you to a situation where either the grandfathering provision is about to expire and you're finding yourself in a rush to find a good project, or while you are waiting, more and more people apply for EB-5 and have a priority date earlier than yours. So the benefit of waiting, I highly doubt.
There is none, I would say, yes. And I was even talking to a client recently. They said probably, come August, September of next year, there's probably going to be such a surge of applications that, yeah, there could be, there could be retrogression, there could be backlog. So yeah, there is no advantage to waiting. And I think, as you noted, Natasha, that if it's not a question of if, it's more a question of when. It's better to get started sooner rather than later. And even if you only have part of your funds accumulated, you might only have, say, 300,000. It might even be better to do a partial investment, get things started. But I should put out there that doing partial investments, it's maybe not always as easy as what clients think. You can't just say, well, I'm planning to get a bonus next year, or I'm planning to get a raise at my job and I'm going to get more money that I can save. That's not going to work for a partial investment. We've got to show already at the time of the filing that you have those assets or you have those funds, or other ways. And they're just, it's a matter of selling the property, or it's a matter of, going through probation, maybe to get your will handled, with one of your relatives, and you're going to get some money or something like that. So yes, it's not quite as easy as that, but there are many cases where it might be a good strategy for our clients. Anything else in closing? I think we've covered a lot. I think it's a matter of, like you said, there's been a heightened awareness about the EB-5 program in light of this H-1B surcharge or surtax that was recently implemented. And I think even the gold card, whether it's viable or not, if anything, I think it just puts more light on EB-5. And I think people, once they become aware of the program, start looking at it more. I think they'll realize, some of the inherent advantages of EB-5 compared to the gold card or some other options. So like they say, all PR is good PR for the most part. So anyway,
so immigration is never boring.
I guess so. Sometimes just when you think it gets really boring and nothing's going to change, they throw a monkey wrench in everything. So again, thank you, Natalia, for your time today. Like I said, we've worked with her and her regional center for more than 10 years now, and they've always done a great job with our clients. So we're always happy to recommend their projects to our clients. So thanks again, Natasha, for your time. Hopefully we'll see you soon again.